In this video, I want to show you how to use a select statement in the Oracle database. The assumption is that you already have a table, all right, and the table already exists in your database, and we're just going to query that table, all right? So I have a table called customers, okay? And because I don't know the structure of that table, the first thing I like to do is use a command called describe. All right, so I'll spell this out. You can spell out describe, or you can just use DESC. So describe customers. So what I'm doing is, I just want to know the columns in my customers table. And I can see the customer number, the name, address, and all of this information. Knowing this information helps me to understand, the columns that I can query within that table. All right, so the first thing I want to explain to you is the select statement. A select statement is basically used to retrieve data from the database. All right, so I can run a select statement, and a select statement is also referred to as a query. So I can write a select asterisk from customers. And then I'm going to end this with a semicolon. If I don't put that, the database would expect you to give it another query. So I'm going to end that with a semicolon. And what this is showing me, and okay, first is, it looks like a mess right now. I'm just going to do a quick set page size, set page size. I'm going to set that to 30, and then I'm going to set line size, and I'm just going to set this to 130. Okay, and then I will run this query again. All right, now that looks better. This is how I want to say it. So what I just did was I just kind of formatted the page real quick. The line will be the width, and then the page is just right here. So that's all I did. All right, let's go back to the select statement. So a select is also referred to as a query, okay? What I did was I said select asterisk from customers. What that means is select all. So whenever you see the asterisk, it just means all from customers table. Okay, so there are two clauses that are required when you're writing a select statement. Is select, and you also have to have the from. The select is telling you, what columns, or it identifies the columns from the table. And the from is just telling you where to go retrieve that record from. It's saying it identifies the table. All right. So now what I'm going to do again is I'm just going to retype this so you understand what I'm saying. Now I want to retrieve all information in the customers table. Select all, which will be the asterisk, from customers. All right, and I put my semicolon to end it. Now remember, I did the describe to see the columns that I have in my table. I can use the describe to see the data type. So describe customers, describe table name, right? So that's the customers. Now I just did that to see the name of the columns that I have, and also the data type, and it to tell me whether it is null or not. All right, now knowing this information, what I want to do now is I just want to select one column from that table. And I will do this by just going select, okay? And then I select one of these columns. I think I want the first name. So I'm just going to type first name from customers. And end that with a semicolon, and then I press enter. And you can see I have all the first name of my customers. Now I want to see the first name, the last name, and their zip code. Okay, when I go back up here, you could see that I have the zip column is there. The last name, the first name is there. So I'm just going to rewrite that and go select first name, last name, zip from customers. All right, let's assume I forget the semicolon. This is what happens. It just waits on me on the next line. If I press enter again, it's going to end that, but I'm going to put in the semicolon, okay? And then I still get the output that I want. And you can see all three columns right here. So the one thing I forgot to tell you is the meaning of the comma after each one. The comma is just a separator. It lets the database know that we're calling different columns within the customers table. So the first one is the first name, and I have the comma there. And then I have the last name, and then I have the comma, and then I have the zip code, and then the from clause, and then the customer. That's really what the comma is all about. All right. So now let's assume that I want to have the first name and the last name, but what I want to do is I want both of them to be under one column. I'm going to use something called the concatenation. With the concatenate, it's going to use a pipe, or you could call that the vertical bar. And that's what we will use to combine two columns together. Also keep in mind that because you're combining both columns, it is not saved in the database. It is just an output for you. Okay, so let's look at this again. So I'm going to rewrite my query, but this time I'm going to combine the first name and the last name. Okay, so we'll start this by going select first name, and then I will use my pipe, two of them. Now, if I just go ahead and write last name without putting a space, it's going to be hard to read this. So I'm just going to use a single quote, put a space in between and another single quote, and then use another pipe to join that. And now I'm going to put the last name. Okay, and then from customers. I'm going to show you something else. I forgot the semicolons. I'll just put it now and enter. Now, this is what it looks like. Now you see the first name and the last name all under one, but notice how the column heading looks terrible up here. What you can do is use something that we call the column alias. And the column alias is very useful, to give the heading of your column a meaningful name. All right. When you use the column alias, the as keyword is optional. You can also use a double quotation, but if your column alias includes a blank space, then you use a double quotation. If you want to retain the case, you use a double quotation. And if you're using a special symbol, then you have to use a double quotation. All right, so let's rewrite this query. And this time I'm just going to rewrite it where I'm going to say select, because I just want to rewrite it and change the column heading up here. And I'll be using the column alias. So it's going to be select first name, and then I use my pipes and space and single quote and then pipe, last name, okay? And this is where I'm going to use the as keyword. Remember, it's optional, but I like to use it. So I'm going to use the as keyword. And then now I'm going to put this in double quotes because my column alias, it's more than one word. So it's going to be name, customer names. I'm just going to write it like that, customer name. All right, and I close my double quotation. And then I go to the next line because it's getting too long and I write from customers. And then I end that. And you can see the output. Now my output is customer name. I mean, the column heading is now customer name, and this is the name of my customer. And you can see this heading compared to this heading right here. You can see the difference. Now this one has, a heading that is meaningful. All right. And I just want to show you that. Let me know if you have any questions.